If anybody still needs a syllabus, still a couple right there. Can grab them. Let's get started. This is chemistry, right? I'm in the right room? Okay. That's good. So, chemistry 1020, interpretive chemistry, or it's just an introductory chemistry class, really, is what it is. So, my name is Andy Aspas. I have a very unusual Scandinavian last name. Aspas is Norwegian, I think. So I very commonly go by Andy. You can feel free to call me Andy or Mr. Aspas or Professor Aspas or however you like. I'm totally good with. I go by Andy, but my first name is Andrew. So if you send me an email, it has to be to andrew.aspas@anokaramsey.edu. So be aware of that. So let's take a look at the syllabus. I'm going to just try to quickly show you some of the most important things here. Also a good opportunity for me to get into D2L here. D2L, for probably some of you or a lot of you have used D2L, the online course management system here, but I imagine a lot of you have not. So it's going to be very, very important right away, as soon as possible, you make sure that you can get logged in to D2L, because this is just a regular seated class, but we use D2L all the time. Okay? We use the online stuff in there quite a lot. So easiest way to normally get to it is to just go to anokaramsey.edu, and if you hover over student home there, you can do desire to learn. It's just right there. That's probably the easiest place to log in. So your star ID is what logs you in. You all must have a star ID in order for you to have been registered here. So your star ID and your password is what gets you logged into that. What I would actually recommend is this login page here. Just bookmark that in your browser so that you can get to that quickly. Okay? So you'll have your list of courses right here. After every single class, I will post our announcements for that day up here in D2L. We'll usually spend a couple minutes at the start of the class going over what things are due and what's coming up and what you need to be working on, but I'll post all that exact same stuff up right into here. So this will have a couple of useful links as well for you to use as you're getting registered with the course materials and we're getting going with that sort of stuff. So here, I'm actually going to move it over here a little bit. I'll show you why in a second. There we go. So most of the good stuff here is in content. So materials, content, and here actually I'm going to do as student, so it'll be what you see. Not useful for you to see what it looks like for me, but here if I go to content, there we go. So table of contents will be sort of the first thing that shows up, and the sections are here. Links, we're going to talk about mastering chemistry quite a bit in a few minutes. That's the online homework system that you need to get logged into. There will be assignments in there for each chapter. So that's sort of in the links section. Handouts is sort of the information that you get, supplements and things like that. So the syllabus is right here inside of handouts. So if you lose your syllabus, you can grab it right in there and print it or refer to it as much as you like. And one very handy thing that I'll show you, generally in D2L, when you're in content, the things will show up sort of inside of this little frame in content, but this little button right here makes it its own window. So that'll be very helpful with handouts and stuff like that. So you're not having to look at it inside of a little box. You can make it have its own window. So here's our syllabus. Let's take a quick look at what you absolutely need to be aware of. So, of course, in a college course, the syllabus is the course Bible, right? You are responsible for things that are in the syllabus. So it would be absolutely to your advantage to take some time, maybe between now and the next class section, to very carefully look through the syllabus, because I'm obviously not going to just read the whole thing to you up here. You're responsible for that, but I will point out some of the more important parts to it. So, first of all, There is a prerequisite. I believe it's Math 0200 or equivalent right now. If you're a new student here, you took the AccuPlacer test. That placed you into what math course that you're in. So that you have to have completed 0200, which means AccuPlacer would have placed you beyond 200 as you're going. So we make pretty extensive use of basic math calculations and a bit of algebra in here. So and we'll hit it pretty quickly, starting really pretty much right at the beginning of the semester, so there are no surprises with anyone. But if you feel at all kind of shaky about your math, you're definitely going to want to get extra assistance with it or do extra practice. I'll tell you plenty of extra ways that you can get help with the math, because that will sink you in a real hurry if you're having troubles with the math involved, because this is a chemistry class, but there's a good amount of math involved, and if your math is holding you back, then you'll have trouble with everything else. So even if you meet that prerequisite, maybe, but if you just kind of squeezed by in your last math class, or there are probably some of you where it's been a while since you've taken a math class, you're going to want to pay extra close attention to that and take advantage of the extra things that we'll be talking about here for extra practice and extra help with that sort of stuff. Okay, so we all meet in here for a lecture Tuesdays and Thursdays. Okay, so we meet in here twice a week. Today's Tuesday, and we'll meet again in here on Thursday. That's for everybody. That's our lecture. And there are 2 lab sections. So what you actually signed up for when you registered was this lecture and one of those 2 lab sections. So half of you will come to lab today afterwards, and the other half will come to lab on Thursday before lecture. So check your registration again. Make sure you're coming to the right lab section so that that's all taken care of. But lab meets this week. You have to come this week. This one we're doing safety training, so make sure to do that. My office is E224, and when you find the lab, you notice lab is E221. So my office is right across the hall from the lab over there. My office is not actually with the other faculty suites, so you'll find that there. My office hours, I have office hours each day. So definitely take advantage of office hours. It's a vastly underutilized resource, I've found. I usually end up with only just a handful of students that take advantage of the office hours. But those are times that I've set aside specifically like for you guys. So even if it's just stopping by to say hello or stopping by to work on some problems, or if you're having trouble with something, the office hours are really a great resource for that. So I'll always have my door propped open, especially during the office hours. So definitely come on by. So let's fast forward down here to required materials. Does anybody have the textbook with you? Hold it up in the air so somebody can see. Yeah, hold that up, way up above your head. So, okay, so that's the textbook. Okay. A year or 2 ago, we decided to do a custom textbook, and that makes students roll their eyes sometimes because they think that we're just trying to rip you off or something like that. The reason we did a custom textbook is because the textbook we use has 20 chapters, and we make use of 13 of those chapters. So all this custom textbook is it's just the chapters that we happen to use in this course, and not the chapters that we don't use. And because it is paperback instead of hardcover, it actually is quite a bit less expensive, at least new anyway, than the standard textbook. So we did it to save you money. That said, the textbook is Introductory Chemistry, 5th edition by Nivaldo Tro. If you find used or whatever, or borrowed from someone else or something like that, that is the exact same textbook. That's the exact same material. You can use that with no difference. Okay? Same page numbers, same everything. Okay? So I promise we're not trying to rip you off with the custom textbook. That's just what it is. So one thing you do have to be very carefully aware of is that you need to have access to this Mastering Chemistry, and there are 3 ways to get that. If you purchase a new textbook from the bookstore, one with the shrink wrap, okay, that will include a Mastering Chemistry access code with it. Okay? It's on a little card, and you scratch off the code. Okay? That's probably what most of you will do, but that's definitely the most convenient way. Mastering Chemistry access is available to us separately. We made a sort of custom deal with the publisher for those of you that maybe got a used textbook or are using a textbook from a friend or relative or something like that. If you go to this link, and I have this same link in the announcements in D2L, that pearsoncustom.com/mn-anokachem. That link gives you access to just Mastering Chemistry at a discounted rate. Okay? So if you go on to masteringchemistry.com itself and purchase the access from there, it will be more expensive, but that's because that also includes an ebook. And that might actually be attractive to some of you if you're always carrying a tablet or a computer or something with you all the time. And the ebook might be an option for some of you, because that probably would be less expensive than buying a printed textbook. But if you got a printed textbook, if you got it used or something like that, your cheapest option will be to get Mastering Chemistry on its own from sort of option 2 here. Okay? So new textbook, you get the whole bundle. Available separately, just on its own, available with the ebook there for Mastering Chemistry. So pick out whichever of those options works best for you. But either way, you need to have access to Mastering Chemistry. You will not pass this course if you don't do that. Mastering Chemistry, those assignments are worth points, and you got to do it. So. We will, when we get to the part about homework, I'll take you through some of the assignments, and we'll go to that from there. But you absolutely have to do that. There is a laboratory manual. Somebody got that? That's the one with the picture of somebody pouring something. Here, hold that up in the air so everybody can see that. Yep, that is a loose leaf packet. It is 3-hole. Punched, definitely put that into a binder of some type. Bring that to lab every week. Okay? Those are your laboratory experiments, and we'll talk about in lab what to do. So that's the lab manual. There are also lecture notes. Somebody get that? Yeah. Hold your bind. Yeah, there. That's what it looks like. Hold that up. It says Chem 1020 notes. Okay? It's another sort of shrink-wrapped package. Okay? So at the bare minimum, what you need from the bookstore or something is the book, and then the 2 shrink-wrapped packages, the lab manual and the lecture notes. Okay? So if you are let's say if this is not your first time taking introductory chemistry, there are a couple of you who are repeat visitors. You do not need to buy new Mastering Chemistry access. That should still work. You'll have to join our course again with our course ID. But please do get a new lab manual and lecture notes, okay, so that you're not having to erase or write over things. Okay? So you must have a scientific calculator. You know it's a scientific calculator if it says log on it somewhere. And in our last chapter, we're going to use that log button a couple of times. So make sure you have some kind of calculator that has a log button on it. It does not need to be a graphing calculator, but if you already have a graphing calculator, that'll obviously work just fine. But I highly recommend going to Walgreens, Walmart, Target, whatever. Get a little. It should cost you $10 to $20 probably. I think they have them in the bookstore too. Probably the most popular ones are the TI-30XA and the TI-30XIIS. Either of those will be just fine. But get that right away. Get that as soon as possible. We will be using that already probably on either Thursday or, probably on Thursday already. We'll be starting to use that. So get yourself a calculator. Bring it to class every day. Bring it to lab every time. Okay? Always have that calculator. Do not use your cell phone as a calculator. I know everybody has scientific calculators on their cell phones now, but you cannot use that on an exam. Okay? So get the cheap little $10, $20 calculators so you're practiced using that. Bring it with all the time so then there's never any question. And when you're using that on the exam, it's no different from what you've been practicing with. Okay? We have lots of internet-type resources here, including the online homework assignments. So internet access of one type or another is a requirement. So if you have decent internet at home, that's fantastic. If you do not have decent internet at home, you're going to have to plan your schedule out so you spend some time either in our computer lab or at a library or something like that, because the online homework assignments will not be so great on bad, slow dial-up internet or something like that. So, so plan on spending time, several hours, I would think, at least 2 or 3 hours each week, using the internet, doing these assignments. There will be homework assignments. There will be online quizzes that we'll need to do for lab as well, which we'll talk about later. But make sure that you plan for that. That's important. Okay, so I want to just highlight this one right here. I talked a few minutes ago about how some of you maybe just barely squeezed by in your math class, or it's been a while since you've taken math, or you've always just kind of felt shaky with math or something like that. I highly, highly recommend that Essential Algebra for Chemistry students, okay, by David Ball. If you feel okay with your math, it's not necessary at all. But if you have any sort of doubts of your math abilities, I would highly recommend that. You can get it new or used from the bookstore. You can get it on Amazon or whatever. But that will take you absolutely step by step from the little tiniest baby steps through any of the math that we would be doing in here. Okay? So again, highly, highly recommended if you have any doubts of your math abilities. So I'll have lots of links. There is a study guide, I believe, and a solution manual from the bookstore. Typically, most students don't need those. If you find yourself needing plenty of extra practice, I'll already have plenty of ways for you to do practice, but there are definitely some students that just can't get enough practice. So that's what those are the students I would recommend those for. But you'll find out pretty quickly whether or not you're needing more practice or not. We have tutoring at the Academic Support Center on campus right here, 5 days a week, and there's somebody for chemistry in there almost all the time. And one of the very common regrets that I hear from students that didn't do as well as they wanted towards the end of the semester is that they say very often, "I wish I would have gotten help sooner." Okay? And there is no shortage of ways that you can get help, okay, for a class like this especially. So I mentioned my office hours. Feel free to use that. The Academic Support Center is staffed by students that have done well in these exact courses and have been personally recommended by the instructors they took it from because they work well with others. So if you're having specific issues working through problems or something like that, bring problems and work with them together with one of the student workers in the Academic Support Center. And some students have found that to be very, very helpful. Okay? But there's always a barrier to doing something new for the first time. Be very aware that if you wait too long, it could be too late. You don't want to get behind in a class like this. You'll have, we go really fast and everything sort of builds off of everything else. So, so as soon as things are, as soon as you start to get confused or you're finding yourself falling behind, definitely come and get help. Go visit the Academic Support Center. It's right by the main entrance, by the information desk. You just, the main doorway over there, it's just to the left of there. And all you do is just walk right in. I think they might have you sign in on the computer there. But the tutors are just sitting at tables, and it says with a little sign what subjects they can help you with. So you just walk right in, and it's not a big deal. So even some of the very excellent students like to make use of the Academic Support Center just to have somebody to bounce problems off with and keep practicing. So you might also be interested in giving this a try. I haven't heard too much feedback about it, but there's also a link to this right from D2L, I think. Anoka Ramsey has some kind of account with Smart Thinking. It's an online tutoring service. So if you're having some kind of real problem over the weekend or in the middle of the night or something like that, it's open during the hours that the Academic Support Center is closed, in other words. So it's free for students. Give it a try. If somebody gives it a try and you actually get something from it, let me know. I haven't heard from students that have actually benefited from it, but I would really encourage you to, at some point, just give it a try and let me know what you think of it. So, you can feel free to read through this part sort of on your own. It's something that that all of us here at Cambridge put in our syllabi starting about 5 years ago, probably, about how to get the most out of a college level class, right? What you can expect from, what to expect from yourself, how, being respectful to each other and to the classroom, and taking your responsibility seriously as a student. Somebody's paying good money for you to be here, whether it's you or your family or your future from loans or something like that. So make the most of it while you're here. Don't start skipping class. I would say skipping class is the best way for a decent student to do badly. So come to class and then rise to the challenge. College level courses are demanding. Hey, we're gonna. I'll be expecting things from you that you may not have been a level that may not have been present in your classes before. So take it on as a challenge. Say to yourself, I'm going to push myself, I'm going to get the most out of myself, and you'll be surprised at what you can do. We will talk about this lab stuff in lab, but suffice it to say there will be assignments that you will need to do both before lab and after lab. So there will be a specific assignment, for instance, that you'll have to do before next week's lab. Okay, but we'll talk about exactly what that is in lab this week. All right, let's talk assignments and quizzes. Here, this is a good time to look at the schedule. So go to page 8. So, course calendar, I have all our major dates and the content that we'll be covering in class in here as well. So over here, this is what lab will be doing each week. You need to pay close attention to that because we do not necessarily go in order that's in the book, right? We'll do 1, then 2, then 9, and we'll have a week off for Q&A in the lab, and then experiment 6, and so on. So you need to be checking that each time so that you're preparing for the right experiment each week. We'll talk about mastering chemistry in a second, but our first mastering chemistry assignment will be due on January 26th. Those will mostly be due on Monday nights, before our Tuesday class. We have quizzes. Quizzes are in class. They'll take the first 20 or 25 minutes or so of class, and then we'll have lecture after that. Okay? And then we have exams in class, which take the whole time. So all that's listed on there. On the previous page to that, here, page 7, this shows specifically which content we're covering within the textbook. The reading assignment there in that second column there, I will keep you up to date on those, but the best way I think that works for most students is to read those sections before we cover them in class. So on the schedule, for instance, says we're going to deal with Chapter 1 today, Chapter 1 and 2 next time. So if I were you, before Thursday, I would get Chapter 1 read in your textbook and at least the first couple of sections of Chapter 2. It tends to be very helpful for students to, you're not going to fully understand it just by reading it straight the very first time. The textbook is kind of dense, but if you have any familiarity with it at all, even if you're just looking through the main terms, looking through some of the main stuff, any familiarity that you have with the material at all, when you come to class then, when we talk about it in here, it helps to cement that. So it has to do with sort of how the brain works. And what's even better is if you can read through it and come up with some kind of question, or if you can manage to get yourself confused about something from the reading, that's actually a good thing, because then when you come to class and we resolve that, that's a much more powerful learning experience in your brain. It's sort of that's the way the brain works. Your brain does not learn well just by vacuuming in data. And that's a habit that you need to get yourself out of. You need to, just like any kind of exercise, the more your brain works for something, the more it sticks around. So if you can have some sort of familiarity, get yourself some questions or some things that you need to be resolved. And if those things can be reinforced during our lecture or our activities that we're doing here, and then further reinforced with the problems that you'll be doing after that, then that makes those connections much more stronger in your brain. So that's a really great way of doing it. Here, these suggested problem assignments are at the end of each chapter in the textbook. Those are, so I always have to think about how to put this. An average student, okay, you're familiar with the bell curve. There are some, kind of not so hot students, and most students fall in the average region, and then there are some much higher students. That bell curve defines any kind of population like that. So the big chunk, most of you in here, average students, if you were to go through and do every single one of those problems, that would make you do really fantastically well in this class. Okay? Really, an average student, I think, if they go through and do those problems, could get an A in this class. Okay? So that's sort of what we're thinking here. Outstanding students, you can pick through those and do what you need to do, what you need extra practice on. Students that are challenged may need to do these and may need to do more for practice. Okay? So in order to do really well in a class like this. If all you're doing is looking for a passing score in here, maybe you can squeeze by without them if you're an average student. Okay? If you have trouble in math, if this stuff comes really difficult for you, if you're an average student, you will probably have to, or if this is tough for you, you're probably going to have to use these practice things to get a passing score in this class. So the students that end up, it's pretty common, the students that I see doing really well in a class like this have a notebook, and they've gone through and they've done all of these. Okay? So I will not be grading these. I will not be asking for these to be handed in. This is sort of your responsibility. Most of the learning in a class like this will happen on your own. Okay? No matter how good the teacher is or the assignments or whatever, most of the learning in a class like this happens on your own with your practicing. Okay? Through your pencil on a paper. Quizzing yourself, finding questions, anticipating what's going to be on a quiz or exam or something like that. That's where the real learning happens. So keep that in mind. If you're looking to be doing really well in this class, I would consider these a necessity, pretty much. Okay? So, all right. So we did reading assignments. We talked about quizzes. We talked about practice problems. Let's talk about mastering chemistry. Online homework problems in mastering chemistry. So.